Hello, my name is Marcus and welcome to Tabletop Reviews, where today I'm having a look at a 2024 release called Spectacular. You probably recognize it from my top 10 games of 2024, where it was my number 2. I'm just going to move my phone. And now I'm here to tell you why it was my number 2. So, let's get it set up. When opening the box, there isn't a central board like in most board games. Instead, everything is in these neat little boxes. For example, this one contains the so-called towers. Those should be divided into the different colors. The next one contains all of the different animal tiles. Now, I'm setting this one up for 4 players, so there's the special rule that all the tiles marked with an X should be removed, only used for 5 or 6 player games. Now, these should also be divided into their different colors. The last box contains a whole bunch of dice. No one needs to be removed, but of course these should also be split into their respective colors. Now there are some boards in the game. Each player gets his own, and each player gets a different kind of animal matching one of the dice colors in the game. There are also either the sun board or the leaf board. What they are is the sun boards are identical, so alike, and leaf boards bring asymmetrical play, having a different starting position for each player. But each player should choose a starting board and gets a box matching that animal. In this personal box of yours, you will find everything you need to set up your own personal area. These so-called worker tiles, there's one for each color of dice and animal tile, and then one joker. Each player starts with 8 dice, 2 in each color, roll them up and place them on their designated area. There is also a pile of animal tiles marked with a pink background, purplish, and the starter animal you chose. The top 3 of this randomly drawn pile will be placed right next to your dice. The next 3 will be placed on the starter areas, with these 1/3 of a tower matching the dotted line on these marked tiles on your player board. Each player also gets this board at the top of their own board. We can call this the draft board. Now each draft board is numbered. This matters mostly for the expansion module. But on these ones you will place 1 of each different color animal and 1 of each different color dice. Alright, here we are with the game set up for 4 players. One thing I do want to mention is there is this little extra box. It is a module they include in the base game for called secret missions or something. So it gives you an extra target to go for on the board. We have yet to play with this because we just don't feel like it's necessary. I'm gonna full disclosure right now, I haven't played with this because it doesn't feel necessary for what the game is. It's super fun and entertaining as it is. Anyways, the setup is nice and easy. I mean, these little boxes here make it so easy. It's just, hey, here's your shit. And then you have the little symbol up here, meaning, oh, okay, I'm probably gonna place these here, and the dice over here makes sense. And then you can introduce placing this out. It's super easy. One thing, of course, is everything here is mixed up in the boxes. Whoop. That it comes in. So you have to always quickly distribute it. Can be a little bit annoying. I mean, especially finding the crosses. As long as you know there's 3 of each, it's okay. Well, than that, it can be a little bit of a hassle to distribute it. But that's about it within playing the game. When you're then done, you just flip these tiles over because you can see, oh, okay, so this is a blue one, it goes over here. This is one of my own, it goes over here. You can see that sort of at the end of it all. So yeah, I mean, setup is actually kind of a breeze. It does take up a little bit of space. I mean, maybe we could figure out being a 6-player game at this small little table that I have, but you definitely shouldn't go smaller than this if you want to play 5 or 6 players. I mean, you can squeeze these together, you can squeeze these together, squeeze these together, you can squeeze all this together, and there's a room on the edge, I think. Then it's just a matter of if they can be here for my Calic shelf. This is not a 6-player room, definitely. Maybe it's a 6-player game, it's not a 6-player room. But that's the setup. Now let's get on to the gameplay. But just before that, I do want to say something which is difficult to explain within the confines that I'm doing there. It is played over 2 rounds, and there is a scoring at the end of each round. But the scoring we'll get to. It's played over 2 rounds. That's easier to say like this. Let's have a look at that gameplay. It is a drafting board, where you will draft from the top drafting board, as I called it, and from your own personal supply. You draft one thing from each every round. It doesn't have to match. They don't have to be drafted alongside each other. They are completely individual from one another. Once you've done that, and you place the things into your own personal board, and you send the drafting board on to the next player and receive run from the player next to you. Once the draft boards are empty, meaning after the first 8 turns, the first round is over and you score from the ticket. You count all the dice that are connected. In this instant, color does not matter. You count all the pips on these dice, and that is your first round of scoring. If there's any dice that are not connected with these one, they do not count. Even if they are connected by a tile, it has to be lines of dice. Once you have done the scoring for the first round, you are ready to begin the second round, where you fill in one of each colored animal on the draft board. And in a 2 to 4 player game, you fill in 2 of each dice, meaning in a 5 or 6 player game, you still only get 1 of each dice for this second round. And after 7 additional turns, your own personal supply is empty, and it's the end of the game. Alright, it's the end of the second round, and we're about ready to score this bad boy. So yeah, first thing I forgot to have to mention is, of course, these worker tiles. How to use is you can change a die, +1, -1, and they do wrap around, meaning you can make a 6 to a 1 or a 1 to a 6. Of the color that is here, you have 1 of each color, and then of course a multicolored one. So you can change the dice, and at the end of the second round, you get to use whatever you have left, just to maximize scoring. So maybe you have a 5 on a tower, and you want to make that a 6. You could do that just by flipping it over and using it. But you can also use it all throughout the game to play out. Yeah, just made more sense to say it here. And of course you have the final scoring. You have the first scoring, which is the 1 dice from the ticket, explained already. Then you score each area. And the way you score each area is you put together the pips shown on the dice times the amount of hearts that are sort of have a dice on it, right? So for example, this green area right here has 3 heart tiles with a dice on each, and then a 5, so that would be 2 for 11 times 3, which is 33, just as an example. By the way, these, you shouldn't look at this. I had some fun just setting it up with the absolute maximum score, so it scores 231, 271, 250, and I have not scored the last one yet, which is that one over there. I wanted to see how that scores. I think it's going to score the lowest, but yeah, those are completely unrealistic scores. To get above 200 is insane. You're never going to get that. It was just me having some fun. But yeah, you score each area like that, individually, each color, that's 4. Then you score the towers, and it's quite simple. Every tower that is completely filled scores the pips that is shown. So for example, this one is completely filled, and this one is. And this one is not completely filled. So this one doesn't score, this one scores, and that's 6, 12, and 18. Again, it was a 6 that was on there, because it's absolute maximum. So this would be 18 for towers, or if you add this one in, it would be 36, because this is, yeah. That's how you score towers. Then you have animals, and that's different types. And you score points for 10 to 17 different types of animals. And what we usually are about is like 12 to 13. I think if you're going to go through my scores, 21 and 30 is what I scored the most. Then probably 40. And then there's a few like 51, 63 and 6 points, which is up all the way up to 16 or all the way down to 10. No one has yet reached 17 different animals. That is a very difficult thing to do. I mean, if you add together, you have first you have what? You have this amount of turns, which is 8 or 7. No, it's more than that. It's more than that. It's way more than that. You have 8 and 7 turns, so that is 15 turns. So basically, to get 17, you need to choose an animal every single turn, and twice you need to choose 2 animals. And yeah, so it is. It's definitely difficult. I mean, you start off with 1 different, you're only unique. But getting 17 is difficult. It is definitely something that I want to go for at some point playing this game, trying to get 17 different animals. Just taking different animals whenever I can. Fuck placing dice, fuck everything. Every time I can take a different animal that I don't already have, I'm doing it. I think they in some cases say that to get 17 you need to throw out one of your own animals up here, but I can't make that sense because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17 there. So I have 3 spaces left. So basically I can have 3 replicas. There's 20 spaces in total. So why would you need to throw one of these out when you can have 17 different? That I don't understand. But yeah, it's a goal of mine to reach that. And that's how you score. You put it together. Of course I skip over this extra one, but I'll talk about that in gameplay. Whoever's got the most modern points wins. And the tiebreaker is... I can't remember. It's been used once where we scored 171 points each. That was actually once where I went for animals. I got... yeah, I don't remember what. Something is scored here, but we scored 171 each. And I got the 16 different animals. That was going for animals. And only managed 16. That's weird, right? So I can't remember what the tiebreaker is, but I know I lost on it. I'm pretty sure I lost on the tiebreaker, whatever it may have been. Maybe most points for towers or something, most dice. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. That is not the point. So let's talk about the gameplay here. I talked about the setup earlier, of course. So gameplay is nice. It's drafting. I love drafting. It's absolutely one of my favorite mechanics. I think that and worker placements, like up here. And deck building is on the rise. Deck building is on the rise, definitely. But yeah, drafting is absolutely one of my favorite things. What I love about this one is you have your own personal stash. I can't mention the drafting game personally, where you have your own personal stash to select from. Like, you know, I'm going to have these 8 dice, and I'm going to have these. Is it 8 as well? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 animals. But that does not make sense. Alright, because you throw in 3 of them, so it's 8 and 7. Yeah, sorry. I'm messing up here. But I know I have these animals, and I know I have these dice. And of course there's some setup in here, but I know I have this. I can work with this all throughout the game. I can always think, yo, I need a grey with a black tower on it. Well, I know I have the caribou in my personal stash, so I can keep that space open until I reach it and focus on other areas of the board. Where, of course, I'm choosing these ones. In a 4-player game, there is a chance that what you want on here comes around to you. In a 6-player game, there's like no chance. You are not getting that thing that you wanted. But I love having this personal stash. And I do like this one traveling around, this thing of like, do I need a tile, do I need a dice? Usually I need 2 of each, but I can only pick one of these. Like, so many times I'm looking at it and thinking, that green breeding tile, that's amazing. Oh, it's really good, but I need that 2 yellow dice. Oh, or die, I think it is in singular. It's really feisty in that way, where you're constantly looking like, oh, I could use so many things from this one. I can only pick one thing. That's probably why I prefer it at a lower count, just to skip a little bit ahead. Because 5 or 6, you have way fewer dice to use, because you only get these 4 extra dice in the second round into the 4 players. In a 5 or 6 player game, you only have the dice up here. So you have less dice to choose from, and the things come around less. So it is really, every time you have a choice, you need to make the right one. But in a 4 player or less, I think 3 or 4 is probably the best. You are getting those extra dice, you have more dice to choose from every single time, and there's going to be more dice coming your way. But you also know there's good likelihood that I'm gonna see some of this again. So I just need to pick what I want most, and then some of it is going to come back to me, so I can have it again. Because there's going to be at the start 8 things here. You are going to see this one twice, at least. And in the second round you might see it more. Not quite, but you're going to see it again, so you can maybe get it one more time. So I prefer the low count, but we'll get to the player count, which I need that one over there to look at. So yeah, and then you have the scoring method. I think it makes so much sense, you know, the green animals, they belong sort of together. It of course makes sort of sense. The grey animals are sort of the Arctic polar animals, while the yellow animals are the more sort of the not Sahara, the what is it called in Africa? The plains in Africa. I can't remember what they're called. There's something called. But it's sort of those kind of animals, and then you have the green ones, which are more the Asian animals actually. I mean, pandas and tigers and orangutans, they're more Asian. Even sloths as well, they're more sort of the Asian animals. This is more the African animals. These are the polar animals. And the blue ones are, of course, water animals. You have, well, penguins and turtle or sea turtles. It's turtles when it's the sea and tortoise when it's on land, I believe. But turtles and hippos and dolphins. So those sort of make sense, and of course you want to build habitats where they belong together. You want the capybaras, that's not... but the musk oxes and the snow leopards and the snow foxes and the... It's not capybara, I've completely forgotten. The reindeer. They're called something different, but I completely forgot. You want those together, and the tigers next to the pandas. It makes sense, right? Also in terms of building up a habitat. I actually like what I've done here, where I've kind of made a river run through it all. Like that also makes a lot of sense. So that totally makes sense. This thing about breeding tiles, you do... I mean, what it is you're building a reserve for these animals to say safe. So it makes sense to have these breeding tiles, and that is very important to have these animals in these areas, because this is a conservation effort, or so to speak. I mean, elephants and lions aren't necessarily endangered, so not quite, but it is a conservation effort that is being made here. So that makes a lot of sense as well. I'm talking very much about theme right now. And then of course you have watchtowers strategically placed all around to keep an eye on it. I'm talking more about theme here. Should I just skip ahead to that? I mean, gameplay and theme are intertwined here. The drafting, of course, I mean, I don't think you can make a drafting game and make it very, very thematic. Because, I mean, you can't. I mean, if you're looking at Seven Wonders, it is random things you're building where you're trying to get them to match, but it doesn't necessarily happen. I mean, you would definitely make them match if you had the choice. And again, in this one, you would work together and make sure that they are, all the animals are in good places. So, in that sense, it doesn't quite make sense. But it is a drafting game. You can never make a thematic drafting game. I can't think of any. Maybe there are some out there who knows of a thematic drafting game that can tell me. But yeah, gameplay and the theme work together very well in these other aspects other than the drafting, but drafting is just a really good mechanic, so I forgive it for not being overly thematic in that sense. Let's talk about the components as well. I mean, the dice are nice. They're quite small, but it works really well in terms of both the space and just rollability. And the colors, I think, are easily to distinguish between. I have not played this with my colorblind friend. He doesn't really seem interested in it, so that's fair enough. I don't want to force him. But that does also mean I have not tested these for colorblind friendliness. But I think it would be fine. I mean, yellow, blue, green, and grey are sort of colors that don't intertwine, as far as I understand of colorblindness. So I think that works pretty well for it. And I think they're quite distinct. You can easily tell it. And even if you can't quite tell it, I think the animals on it give away where it's from, right? Once you learn, oh, Asian animals, Bokla, water animals, it makes sense in that essence. So it does help aid with that one. And talking about the animals, I mean, it is easy to see what the animals are. There aren't really any confusion. At least, well, if you know what the species is, of course. But there isn't really any confusion. Like, you know, okay, even if I don't know what an elephant is, I know these two. They belong together, but this thing with the horns doesn't belong together, the rhino. So even if you don't quite know what the animals are, you know they fit, they match in that way. And also a way to avoid it, so to speak. The towers is probably where you would get a little bit of colorblind, not so friendliness, because when you look down here, I mean, the yellow one and the yellow tower here blend quite well together, and it's just about right. Is it wide? Is it grey? It can be a little bit small. You shouldn't be any doubt with the heart. Again, it's popping red. There's some color blindness. I know red and green, so on the green tiles that might be a confusion, but you have the shape, hopefully, to go off there. So yeah, all in all, it's great artwork. I really love looking at it, and the components are great. I mean, these towers are perfectly fine. They do what they need to do. It doesn't need to be any other than this cylinder here, and yeah, so great components for it. These one to push around. I mean, I would have loved for these to be at least at the dice dual layer, because when you move them around, if you have to like flip them around like this, you are easily going to tip something over. So it's all about remembering what was on there, basically. But other than that, no complaint about any material. I mean, these ones are just paper, but that works perfectly fine. It probably makes it cheaper as well, so that's a thumbs up for that one. It absolutely works. And I've already mentioned about the theme and the gameplay, and let's see, does it lie to you? Now I need the box, which I've hidden away over here. It says here on the side, I can read upside down. So I know Chili Fox games, you always know it's going to be 1 to 6. That's basically what the company does. 10 and up, 20 to 30 minutes. And they even tell you that it is a medium game. So a medium strategy game, which is again something that Chili Fox actually goes for. So let's talk about that 1 to 6. I obviously not played it at 1. But I have played it at basically every other player count. And I'm telling you, 3 or 4 is the best. 5 or 6, again, you remove some of these dice and it goes a lot longer. Like, you know, I'm not going to see this one again. I mean, sure, technically I am. The first 2 will go back again because, you know, first you play 8 rounds and then in the second one you'll see the one you start with again. But at the time it comes back to you, there's basically nothing on it. There's basically no choice. So if you're looking at it and saying, there's 3 things I like this the most, I hope the 2 other things come back to me. But that's where in 3 or 4 players, again, you're going to see, in the first round you're going to see all of them twice, and in the second round there's 1 you're not going to see twice. In a 4-player game and a 3-player game, you're going to see all of them twice all the time and some of them 3 times. So it comes back around to you, and I think that's the important thing about drafting is you can hope for something to come back around to you. Again, they sort of combat it by having areas up here that you know you have access to, so you know you can rely on this, and therefore you can make the choices based on that. But that in a 3 or 4 player game where they come back to you and you know, I'm going to see these again. And especially with those first 2, you know, most of it is going to be on there. I'm going to have a pretty full plate. So the chance of those 2 things I'm hoping for to come back to me, at least one of them, is pretty high this time. So definitely at like a 3 or 4 it works way better than it does at 5 or 6. Also just because you get more dice on it. And really in a 5 or 6 player game, at the end you're sitting there going like, well, I can't succeed because I can't get the dice that I need. And I only have so many workers. So I'm in a bad position. And therefore usually in 5 or 6 player games we end up scoring quite lower than we would in a 3 or 4 player game. And you can say that's just the game, but I say it kind of sucks. It sucks to not score as many points. You love a point cell, you love to score a bunch of points. So a 3 or 4 player game is where I prefer it. 10 and up, maybe. I mean, honestly, the first scoring with the tickets, I still have some of the people having problems understanding what it is you're scoring there. And then the second one, I have people having trouble to quite grasp the scoring of this one. I think that would be a problem even as you're younger, so I might go higher than that. 20 to 30 minutes. I think it is a little bit longer than that. You are probably going to go closer to about an hour, 45 minutes. Maybe you can do it at 30 minutes if you're 3 players that won't know the game, 3 or 4 players who won't know the game. But if you're going a little bit higher player count and you have some players in that don't know the game, you are looking at 45 minutes to an hour, definitely for the gameplay here. So yeah, and a medium strategy, I mean, it comes back to this thing. Some people I've experienced quite a few people having trouble quite grasping the playing with it. And I'm not talking about my family, I'm talking about the people that I play with on a weekly basis, where we play a bunch of different games. I've played most of my games with these people. They have a little bit of a trouble understanding some of this aspect. So that makes me think it's a medium. Maybe it's a you know, they have 1 to 3 on this one. Maybe it's a 2.5 more than it is a 2. But if you ask me, it is a strategy game. There is some knowledge to be had from it. You need to play it multiple times to quite understand it. But it is not a super heavy game. I mean, if you're comparing it to War of the Ring or the Twilight Imperium, just to mention some of the ones I have on my shelves that are quite up there, definitely not compared to that one, I don't think. But that's my personal opinion on it. So, what will the score be? Is that not what I've meant? Yeah, that is what I've gone to. Yes, the final score of this game is going to be a 9 out of 10. It is, once again, that damn player count. It's so important to me that you are telling me about a player count that works really well. I never judge on one because I don't play solo. But that 5 or 6 player game feels so much different. And I always, whenever I present it and we're like 5 people that want to play it, I'm like, damn, can't one of you play something different? Just, please, we can play it again. Because I want to play it at 4 because I really think it comes alive at 4, and 3 is okay as well. But as always, so many of us like this game, we want to play it. So yeah, one thing I didn't mention is this thing with switching around to, you know, starting on the same side to being on different sides. it is good to start on the same side, especially when one of you knows the game, so can help you a little bit with it. But definitely once you know the game, you want to play different, you want to be a little bit different from each other, going for different things in this setup as well. So I like that aspect. It's a good way to have an introduction and a pro game, just to say something. So yeah, this is definitely one that's staying in my collection, because again, we are always many people who want to play it. At some point I'm gonna get my colorblind friend to play it as well. I'm forcing him to it, man. Nah, I can't force anyone to play something that they want to, and he focuses on theme. And check out my theme video I have posted a while back, and I'll tell you what I think. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope it doesn't just drag on too long, this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!